Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Girl Gone Crypto. I'm really excited. I've got Josiah here from Digibyte, who is the Chief Fun Officer, which I think might be the best title that I've ever heard. Josiah,
Yes.
thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks very much for having me. Look, it's an honor to be here. I appreciate it.
So I have obviously seen Digibyte all around the cryptoverse for a long time, and it kind of struck me the other day that I don't really know that much about Digibyte. And so I put out a tweet just kind of saying, hey, who should I interview? And you were the unanimous choice from the community. So I thought just to kind of kick off, I mean, obviously Digibyte is kind of an OG altcoin, but tell us a little bit about what it is and why people should care about it.
So the elevator pitch is a lot of people are obviously very familiar with Bitcoin. They know what it stands for. They know the idea that you are self-sovereign and in control of your own funds, and that it is decentralized, and that there wasn't an ICO, and all of that great stuff that really holds true to a lot of the roots. Digibyte has kind of just taken that and dialed everything to 11. So same for where it comes to like the proof of work mining. Rather than having one where there is a handful of miners, we have 5 different algorithms, and we have some of the most diverse proof of work mining, arguably in the entire industry. Same for the block timing. 10 minutes is great, that's cool, you can do a whole lot with it. It would be great if you could increase that a little bit, but not just like 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, but we went for 40 times faster with a 15-second block timing. So whole bunch of nice little things like that that have made it really more usable, I suppose, for the broader world.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to like dive deeper on each of those little things. So one of the things that I think is actually very cool about Digibyte is that transaction time that you talked about. And so 15 seconds is obviously a little more attractive than 10 minutes when we're talking about like daily transactions if someone's trying to buy coffee with their crypto, things like that. Like, is that one of the main reasons behind why you think Digibyte was created, to make it a little bit more usable for everyday use? Or maybe we can talk a little bit about transaction times there.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things as well, and Jared's kind of talked a bit about this in the past, is that when he was looking at Bitcoin, so he started off, he was involved with Bitcoin, started looking at the code, started talking with a bunch of different developers and people on the likes of Bitcoin Talk forums. A lot of OGs will remember back in the day that was the only place that you could go to get any kind of crypto related news. And he would talk with them, and he would say, well, what if we did things like, why is it 10 minutes? Why can't it be 5 minutes? Why can't it be 1 minute? Why can't it be 15 seconds? And so a whole bunch of things like that. Yeah, the idea was that we looked at a lot of the shortcomings and like the pain points. And that's something that we still continue to do within ourselves as Digibyte, being forward thinking, is looking at those pain points, looking at the shortcomings, looking at our weak spots and going, let's fix that, let's improve upon it. And so that was what eventually got us down to, like you mentioned, the 15-second block timing was a combination of Microsoft and ETH Zurich, Switzerland, I believe, research. They basically ascertained that 15 seconds is pretty much like the safe limit for proof of work mining. So here we are today. Yeah.
So similar to Bitcoin, Digibyte has a fixed supply, but you guys have 21 billion instead of 21 million. Can you kind of talk through the thought process for why that number and what the difference, or what that actually causes in terms of the market and the difference?
Yeah, well, so 1,000 to 1 ratio was, I mean, especially if you're looking at there's 8 billion people in the world. That means that if everybody's going to own some Bitcoin, we're talking that's 0.000. Have I got enough? I don't know. I think I need one more. But you know what I mean, right? And it's same for when you're a kid. A lot of the time, I remember doing this with my younger brother. I would have, say for example, two 20-cent coins, and he would have a $1 coin. I would trade him that $1 coin for my 2 20-cent coins. He now has more monies as far as he's concerned, and I'm basically just an asshole because I'm preying on my younger brother. but that's very relatable, right? Like, especially this is the interesting thing that we saw when Litecoin was listed on Coinbase originally, because all that they had previously was Ethereum and Bitcoin. And so when Litecoin comes along and gets listed, and all of a sudden people go, actually, for $50, I can get myself a Litecoin. That makes sense. I can get two of them, maybe. Or when it comes to Bitcoin, I can get 0.00156 or something. And you're kind of going, I mean, it's still obviously we're going to have to split up our denominations somewhere. But it gives us some additional benefits in other ways in terms of like transaction fees and accounting for the faster blocks and a whole lot of other just nice little things. But that's kind of the main thing, is part of it genuinely just is psychological.
You know, that is actually a really interesting point, and something that I do see quite prevalent. You know, when people are new getting into the space, they're like, oh, but I can't afford a Bitcoin. It's like, well, you don't have to buy a whole one. but you're right. There is kind of that mentality, you know, where people, they feel like they've accomplished something more when they have like one of something.
Yeah, exactly. It's different, obviously. I mean, you obviously can relate to this, talking with people and explaining Bitcoin, and they go, but why would, like, what's half of one going to do? It's not like, well, you're getting like 20% of like a ripped $10 note or something, or like half a car. You can still use it perfectly with that denomination split up. So part of it genuinely just is a mental barrier. Part of it is also that we now with 21 billion, we can go and be further more precise in terms of what, you know, transaction fees and transactions themselves are. But yeah.
So you'd mentioned in the beginning, you know, that Digibyte was founded on a lot of the same principles of Bitcoin, you know, of being fully decentralized, and, you know, it's open source and all of these different things. Maybe tell us a little bit about how you've seen the community around Digibyte kind of evolve, and what being in a fully decentralized open source community feels like and what that looks like.
It has its good and its bad. Like, it's great. It's fantastic because we are 100% a grassroots movement. So there is nobody with $1 billion able to kind of just throw it around here and there and everywhere and pay for exchange listings or pay for like lunches with billionaires, that kind of thing. You know, everything that is accomplished has a lot more meaning behind it, because it is people that have taken the time out of their day to perhaps talk on a YouTube channel. Perhaps they went and they responded to somebody directly on a Facebook group. All of that kind of thing carries a lot of, you know, weight behind it, because it is a grassroots movement. So, I mean, there's definitely some bad, don't get me wrong. It's difficult at times because it can be like herding kittens is probably the best way of but at the same time, it's a case of, well, it's the cards that we've been dealt, and it's what we've got to work with. So, you know, we've had a lot of groups that have popped up. We've got the likes of the Digibyte awareness team, we have the Digibyte Foundation, we have We Are Digibyte, we have even some more other groups that have been messaging me going, hey, look, we're wanting to start up another group that will help support and build on top of Digibyte, but encourage it to flourish and encourage it to grow. So that kind of thing, I feel, is both a benefit as well as a negative. You know, like I said, it's the cards we've been dealt, so we're making the most of it, and we seem to be doing all right.
Yeah, I mean, literally, we're having this interview because I've had so many people comment about Digibyte on all of my things. I'm like, all right, I really gotta.
Right?
So. It's
great. It's so cool. And so to anybody in the Digibyte community who is seeing this is something that's tangible. That's happened because of that enthusiasm and that fervor and that passion, all in a grassroots movement. So, yeah, well done to the Digibyte community. Well done to the people out there who are passionate about it.
So one thing that, you know, when it is fully decentralized open source, you know, like you mentioned, there's no, you know, CEO making decisions, and there's no, you know, different marketing budgets, things like that maybe. So what does that look like in terms of getting things done and development? Like, is there, you know, a lot of blockchains have a worker proposal system. Is there something kind of like that, or how does that work within the Digibyte ecosystem?
Yeah, so for the most part, it's been at least historically. If we look at something like a Dandelion, for example, it was a case of a couple of people kind of said, "Hey, this sounds like a really cool idea." They've even got some proof of concept code that we can work with. What do you think? And so both myself and a few other people who've been around for a long time who are not developers, as well as some of the other developers, went, yeah, I mean that why not? There is literally zero downside to it. Somebody came along and they implemented it. They made a pull request on GitHub, and it was a case of, cool, this is great. We're about to do a great big protocol upgrade. So now literally every single person will have this on the core network. And then our Android and iOS developers were basically just like, hang on a second, this is cool. We need this on Android and iOS as well. Let's give people more privacy to protect their IP address when they're out, like, with their cell phones. And it just kind of happens. So it's really quite cool to see it in that respect. There's been a few other things, obviously, when we talk about like ProgPow for GPU mining, so that people can participate from home, RandomX and things like that. There's been a whole ton of community discussion. But I think for the most part, people are pretty rational and pretty reasonable. And so when they see, even if I am a SHA-256 Bitcoin miner, and I sometimes mine on Digibyte, I can understand that mining on a graphics card and allowing broader participation and all of these other great benefits, although not directly beneficial to me, are better for everybody in the network as a whole. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go ahead with that. So it's funny because you hear a lot of people talk about Bitcoin and people being selfish, right? You've heard the trope. But I'm not convinced it's entirely true. I think that people are actually, I mean, I'm ever the optimist, but I think people can see this is for the good of the network. This is for the benefit of the project. Let's go for it. Let's do it. So yeah, it's awesome. I love it. I think it's great.
So talking about development and things that are kind of happening, what's on the like roadmap right now per se? Like what kind of things is being worked on, and what's kind of to come right now in the Digibyte community?
So in terms of what is being worked on right now, we've actually, so for iOS, we've just pushed to test flight the new version of our app, which has Digi Assets support. So we're waiting on Apple, and fingers crossed that will be out. I mean, maybe by the time this video screens. So yeah, I'm so excited. We're doing a bunch of other cool stuff. So Schnorr signatures as well, something that will both make transactions smaller, so we'll be able to cram more into blocks, is going to be coming. It's going to offer greater privacy for people, which is why they should care. It's going to be better for their privacy. Privacy is good. We've got a bunch of other things like ProgPow, which I've mentioned, RandomX for home mining on both your GPU, your CPU, potentially even your cell phone. Wow. How cool would that be? You go to sleep at night, you put your phone down beside your bedside table, you wake up in the morning, you've got yourself a little bit of Digibyte. I think that would be fantastic. So we've got a bunch of cool things like that happening, a bunch of things that are on the go. And if people want to participate, if they think that they can help out and they can contribute, we'd love to hear from them. Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned Digi Assets, because I wanted to ask you a little bit about that and like what's being kind of built on Digibyte and these real world applications. So maybe just tell us a little bit more about that kind of spectrum of things.
I mean, Digi Assets is really difficult to give like a 10-second elevator pitch on, because there are so many things we can use it for. I mean, if I talk about Digi ID, you can log into websites, buildings, replace swipe cards, applications, that kind of thing. Cool, done. And you get that. It replaces your password. With Digi Assets, it is effectively tokenizing almost anything. You could use Digibyte for creating USD Tether. You can use Digi Assets for shares in a company. Is a great one. We have a company in the Philippines who are giving out dividends based on Digi Assets that they have created.
Oh, wow.
So you can buy these Digi Assets. It supported them to go and purchase additional land, and they are a shrimp and crab farm. And so for a couple of years, they basically said that any dividends they receive from that, they're going to give out to the Digi Asset holders. Huh. So a whole ton of cool things like that. And we've also been seeing things like trading cards and the like show up.
Oh, wow.
which are really exciting, but not just a trading card where you've got a static picture. If you've seen the Harry Potter movies, a trading card where it's interactive and where you can go and there's links you can click on, and the images move. We're not quite at the stage where like you can prod it and it will interact with you, but maybe in the future, I don't know. So that would be. But there's so many cool things that we're doing with Digi Assets, and this is what really excites me, is these possibilities, like you say, that people can use them on a daily basis. Everything from using them as transport tickets, going to see like an Ed Sheeran concert, and you use a Digi Asset as your cinema ticket. Not cinema, as your pass ticket.
Or, yeah.
But we can do a whole bunch of stuff, like we can effectively destroy ticket scalping now, because it's on the blockchain, and so you can see if it has been sent from person to person. You can basically declare as the venue, if your ticket gets resold or transferred, we will not honor it, and you can tell straight away because you can see it on a blockchain. So ticket scalping, gone, disappeared. We've just sorted ticket scalping, and then now all of a sudden people can get cheaper tickets across the board at a fair price. You're not going to have one person buying 1,000 tickets to an NBA basketball game, and so many cool and like you say, real world and practical applications.
So for anyone else that's watching that, maybe is kind of new to the world of Digibyte, like I am, like is there anything else we haven't talked about today that you think would be maybe important for them to know?
There's so much going on, and that's always the problem is if you end up like saying too much, it's just
right.
Almost overwhelming. I mean, so we touched on Digi ID, was something that we've brought out recently as well. And you can use that to basically, you'll hold up your cell phone, you'll scan the QR code, and it will sign you in. And we've effectively done away with usernames and passwords. And if that service happens to get hacked, like let's say LinkedIn, for example, or Neopets, now it doesn't matter if somebody out there has your password, because it effectively doesn't exist. You get a uniquely generated login for each website. It's private, so they can't match up like you've seen Facebook and Google doing, and building an advertising profile about you. And there are so many benefits to that kind of security and a simple and fast login method. So Digi ID is available on both the Android, iOS app, and it's also supported by Koinomi Wallet as well, which is really cool. So.
Oh yeah, that's great. Well, Josiah, thank you so much for coming on the show and just giving like a high level, like what is Digibyte, why should people care, and just really digging into some of the cool stuff that's going on and that you guys are building. So Josiah, thank you again so much for coming on the show.
Appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much for your time.